recorded. There we go. Just a quick acknowledgement of your being able to, being able to make time to participate. But I did want to indicate that many of you were on the call in the council meeting on April 21st, and you heard from other council leaders, Colorado, Ohio, and New York, and 2 of our National Audubon board members who are involved with councils, and really had an opportunity to hear how councils work in other states, how they cooperate with their regional office or state office, and I think the kinds of things that chapters bring to the table. As you know, we formed the council as a way for the council and chapter voice to be heard through the council. Very, very important that it's a chapter to chapter network, and that we have the chance to exercise our authority as chapters to be able to be heard, and to be able to share among each other the kinds of things that we want to be about in terms of advocacy. And that's the primary focus of the Pennsylvania Audubon Council. I know that Sally Jeffords had hoped to join us this evening. She is the board member who represents the chapters in the Atlantic Flyway North and includes Pennsylvania. She wished us well. She's keeping well informed of what we do. And frankly, she is now almost a full-time Pennsylvania resident in Lancaster County, and is really looking to stay involved. So this is a good thing. The thing we are doing tonight that I think is really important is to begin the real substance of the work that we need to do as a council. And that is to identify the conservation issues that are of highest concern to each of us, to our chapters, other kinds of things like that, we need to bring forward and bring to the table. This is going to be the first step in this process. And I'm going to be turning this over to Phil Whitmer. Phil Whitmer, some of you remember from the spring 2019 council meetings that we did at Muhlenberg and at State College and at the Suckup Center in Butler County in Western Pennsylvania. He facilitated all the breakout sessions that we did in each of those sites. Welcome him back again. He is, for those of you that are not aware, he is on the advocacy committee along with Shirley Dotson, who's joining us tonight from Valley Forge Audubon. We welcome Valley Forge to the meeting. And he also is the past president of the Delaware Valley Ornithological Club. And he's also on the Birdtown Working Group that is under the leadership of Heidi, former president of Bucks County Audubon. So at that point, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Phil. This is the heart of the meeting. You're the heart of the meeting. We really want people to be able to open up and share. So Phil, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Lee, and thank you to all of you for taking your time. We beg your patience, but hopefully not too much of your forgiveness as we experiment with this technology. As you can imagine, for us to have a conversation with as many participants as we have would be pretty much impossible. So what we're going to do is assign you randomly to breakout rooms. And what we want, when you'll get a request to join the breakout room, and please do. We will then, I'm going to walk through what I expect each group to do at that time. I will try to broadcast, those instructions, but I'm not sure how well that will work. We'll see how that goes. So as Lee was saying, the idea is that we want to generate as many of a list of as many of the concerns that you have And that will be the beginning of a process to go back out to the chapters and forge that information eventually into some position points and the real work of moving forward with advocacy, excuse me. In order to do that, we're going to do brainstorming, and many of you have probably done that before. Let me review for you what the brainstorming rules are, and if you have any questions, you can put those in the chat, and I will open up my own chat so that I can see that whenever it comes up. So brainstorming, the idea of brainstorming is that we want to remove criticism and judging from the idea generation process. And the reason for that is that some ideas are better than others. And, what we're really looking for is the opportunity for one idea to sort of spin into another idea. And as somebody says something that maybe is, not a very good, conservation concern, but it may lead to somebody thinking of something else that, oh yeah, I almost forgot. Here's another issue that is a big concern. So please refrain from judging, none, no, yeah, but, or that's not really very practical, or any other kinds of critiques. Even if somebody says the major issue is, the CEO of ExxonMobil, is going to have to sell his yacht because, we're going to cut back on oil production. So your task is going to be to assemble the largest list that you probably can in the allotted time. And that time is going to be about 15 minutes. So you won't have a lot of time. The groups will be in the size of about 6. The program will do that automatically. The first task that you need to do is find 2 volunteers in your group. Well, I'm sorry, let me back up a little bit. The first thing I want you to do is introduce yourselves, meaning your name and your chapter affiliation. If you go any beyond that, you're going to run out of time. And the last person will be, introducing themselves when I call time, and then you want to have done any of the work. So do that very quickly, and then choose 2 people. We want to have a little redundancy here because we're not so sure about the technology, and we want to make sure that we capture all of your ideas. So one person will do just a handwritten list of the concerns that you guys come up with. The other person, probably the better of the 2 typers, will put those same concerns in the chat so that everybody else can take a look at those. When we get back together as a large group, one of those 2 people will sort of run through for the entire group then what your concerns were. I lost my train of thought for just a second. Okay, with your lists, when you start to, oh, I know what it was, I forgot. So when you enter something in chat, it's sort of like using a message or a text. When you hit enter, it sends it. So if you're going to develop a long list, which is what we'd like, don't hit enter. You can use a semicolon or a comma to divide divide your ideas into one long list without breaking it up. The other thing is that, what was the other thing? Okay, good. I'm glad I have notes. With your list, you're going to generate the list that is concerns local, regional, state, national, global. I want you to think big and small. You don't, if you find yourself saying, well, is this really what they had in mind? Just screen that out and go ahead and put it in the list anyhow. Okay. I don't see any questions in the chat so far, but okay, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and put you into breakout rooms.
Could I ask a question first, please?
Well, can you yes, go ahead.
North Central Pennsylvania, Lycoming Audubon, is concerned with the recent amendment to the current budget that is being proposed for implementing, requiring, I believe is the word, DCNR to make many more ATV trails. And this would be in North Central Pennsylvania. And in any event, it is going to be something that may be out of control, as DCNR representatives have told us before. And so I think that's an advocacy issue that needs to be taken care of like right now. And so I'm sorry to disrupt the tide here and what you're after, but I think that is something that we need to look at currently so that we can try to change.
Well, let me interrupt you, because that's an excellent idea. I want that to go on the list, but this isn't the format for that. I mean, there'll be a chance for you to highlight that as a major concern if it's also a concern for others, but we can't take the time to get into that right now. Otherwise, the whole agenda will fall apart and Lee will be very upset with me.
There's about 12 more people have to come back if they had chosen to come back. Maybe some people were choosing not to come back.
Oh, Phil, one question I have, could you send out a list of people's names and, their chapters and emails?
Yes, we could. Well, we'll put something in follow up.
Okay, thank you.
I know our group is back. I forget what number we were, but hello.
Hi.
I think you have everybody, Phil.
Okay. Well, I only see one report in the chat. Oh, no, here come more. There we go. Okay, Sean. Is Sean here back?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay, Sean, could you go through your list? I'm looking at it now in chat.
Okay, we based on the comment right before we went into chat, we had the ATV trails, lights out, Erie. We've made that more in all of Pennsylvania. Reduction in bird collision, outlaw lead bullets, outlaw plastic shotgun shells, outlaw single-use plastics. Make sure Renewable energy sites are properly placed. Forest fragmentation, illegal for cats outdoors. Stormwater control, municipality education, public education, controlling runoff into the waterways, water quality, including septic systems and sewage treatment plants, invasive species control, enforcement of litter laws, pesticide and herbicide reduction, redefine the national forests, their uses, promotion of the environmental advisory councils across the state, ban fracking, secure adequate and ongoing state funding for the environment, DEP independence from the legislative interference. And I think our top four were Lights Out, Erie, PA, I believe it was the lead bullets, public municipal funding for municipal and public education, and I don't remember our fourth.
Okay, that's terrific.
I know we're not supposed to judge or anything like that, but I just want to say that is a wonderful list, and we missed so many of these, and I can't believe that we did. I love your list.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's, yeah, compliments like that are allowed. Okay, John Robert Carter.
Thank you. I had the pleasure to work with Katie Everhart and Shirley Dotson on this list. We had some really good discussions, and I agree that first list was fantastic. So we'll just kick it off with pollution in general. Problems with plastic in the environment. So all kinds of different plastics, pollution. The spotter and lantern flies with the sticky tape, the emergent issue there. Discussion on the Lights Out Philly, work to persuade building owners to turn off lights at night during migration time, having bird safe windows, pollution intervention with gas stations being placed near wetlands and other important areas. We had examples of the Old Crow wetland in Huntington County, and a rudders being proposed in Blair County near Pinecroft exit near the Sabbath Rest wetland. So it runs into a Class A trout stream. Discussions with Bird Safe Buildings Act, federal buildings being required to update their facilities. Climate change nationally, need for eradication of invasive plant species, Marcellus shale and environmental impacts there. Efforts in cleaning up coal mining waste and abandoned mines. More funding for wildlife refuges, such as corridor crossings over highways. Developments of wind energy and proper placement of energy sources, clean water for people and wildlife, encourage diversity, equity, and inclusion. In our top four, basically pollution that encompassed a couple of those areas in general. The developments of wind energy, proper placement of energy sources, encouraging diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Terrific. Another excellent list. Robert McGarry.
All right. So we started out, as seems some other groups did as well, by discussing the budget mandating construction of new ATV connector trails. But we also sort of unpacked that issue and thought about the different issues that are involved with that, that are sort of broader and, may be part of this one specific issue, but also relate to other environmental issues throughout the state. So those would include habitat fragmentation and disturbance to forest habitat, the activity of the gas industry, and allowing invasive species to colonize habitat. So then after sort of that part of the exercise, we went on and started listing some other things, including clean water, improving native habitat and supporting native plants, promoting renewable energy and ensuring that we're placing solar and wind energy intelligently, as well as fighting climate change. plastic bags and single-use plastic. Oh, wow. My computer changed bans to bans, but that should be banned. Pesticides, support to reduce bird window strikes and keeping cats indoors. So our top 4 would be habitat fragmentation and disturbance to forest habitat, clean water, improving native habitat and supporting native plants, and promoting renewable energy and solar and wind placement.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Jim Bonner.
All right, our list, on our A list, our top list, knowing we could only list 4 things, we cheated and combined a few of them. So we've got model bird-friendly building ordinances and encouraging that, which we believe includes dealing with lights and glass and a whole host of other things. We have really lights out and other dark sky initiatives, which include during migration or any other time, wind and turbine and other large solar sightings and renewable energy issues, and the continued promotion of native plants and possibly developing model native plant ordinances that municipalities can adopt to put into their zoning. Our B list includes the pending changes to the ecology and environmental standards that are making its way through the Department of Education. Lead ammo, which others have mentioned, DCNR and DEP funding, and of course, third rail of outdoor cats. We had a few others on the C list that include, which I didn't type in, but the question of hunting on Sunday, which is, again, another perennial discussion. And one from years ago, the idea of helping to fund things through some sort of a excise or additional tax on binoculars, bird food, and other things that we use to enjoy our passions.
Okay, terrific.
Can I just ask a question for clarification with Jim's list?
Yes.
So I'm clear, I think I understand it, but the EE standards are the environmental education standards for what's required to be taught in public schools.
Correct.
Is that correct? Good.
Yep.
Okay, good. Margaret.
Okay. I have like 2 lists here, and one is word for word notes of what we talked about, and the other is bullet points. So, management of invasive species, plant and animal species, and insects like spider lanternfly. Banning the sale of invasive species was something that we talked about because the DCNR is proposing doing this. Environmental education, so maintaining and promoting it in Pennsylvania schools and advocating for it to not be removed from the state curriculum, which is something that might be coming up for public discussion. Bird window collisions, like everyone else has already mentioned, promoting ordinances and wise construction of new buildings, particularly windows, and light usage and turning lights off at night. Pesticides, promoting limited use and the use of natural methods and alternatives, as well as education around the hazards of their use and impacts to birds, insects, and other wildlife. Generally protecting habitat and ecosystems for carbon capture. Watershed protection, also in general to support water quality, reduce flooding and erosion. And one thing that we talked about there was this idea that basically just of tree loss in neighborhoods and in developments. And if there's a way that we could, help limit that, maybe with ordinances or with some kind of a carbon tax. So if you cut down a huge tree, you have to replace it, that kind of thing. And climate change, getting involved in local actions to address climate change. And then another thing that we had was supporting wildlife rehab centers because they are very overburdened and underfunded. And a lot of the work that they do is for birds who are their patients. So supporting them is important. But that's all that we had. It was 7 things. I don't know exactly what our top 4 is. I guess invasive species, bird window collisions, environmental education, and maybe climate change, but it's hard to choose.
Okay, thank you very much. Did we get all of the breakout rooms? I think we did. Okay, any other questions?
Phil, I'm sorry. Our group didn't get a chance to share. Brian,
oh,
gonna do our list. Brian, you want to unmute yourself? Sorry, thanks.
Yep. Okay. First of all, Lee, I don't know how you're going to tackle all of these. I mean, all of these are great ideas. So, you got a big list here. Good
Well,
luck.
there's 365 days in a year. We're going to
Yeah.
do one each day.
Right. Okay. So we had a great group, and I thought we covered pretty much everything. And then I listened to all the other lists, and I thought, how do we miss those? Right. So we'll just go through ours. We had, of course, habitat destruction, and that kind of coincides with climate change and how we mitigate climate change. And so we also had habitat restoration. And we have energy development, and that could be wind, solar, pipelines, etc., and their their footprints. Each one of those has renewable energy and its effect on biodiversity, forest fragmentation, and then bills that we are always bombarded with and trying to keep up with that exploit the environment, and ways to stay abreast of those. And helping to differentiate which of those initiatives are worthy of our attention when we have a limited amount of time. We also discussed that we lack an energy policy, and that's problematic, not only federally, but locally, and usually locally and regionally. And then plastics in the environment are a major issue. There was actually talk about plastics being synonymous with poison. And then rodenticides and pesticides, invasive species, and then some really controversial ones that no one wants to hear or talk about: overpopulation, human overpopulation. And then if you're talking about overpopulation, we could talk about deer, but again, a pretty unpopular one. Urban sprawl, and then urban and rural disconnect, and how we're having a difficult time communicating with one another. So how do we message our conservation ideas without turning people off? And the same goes with climate change and messaging. So strategies on building trust, especially if you're in rural areas, that's a major concern. Pests and disease, and then of course windows and light pollution, so the window and bird strikes, and then of course pollution. That could be light pollution, water pollution, etc. And when we whittled it down, we felt that our big four were habitat, climate, pollution, and I put climate twice. What was our fourth one, Laura?
Energy development.
Energy development. Yeah.
Yeah, renewable energy, you would say.
Yeah, energy.
Well, just energy development, I think, really.
Yeah.
And,
I accidentally typed in climate twice.
I thought of one thing that no group has mentioned, so could I add one more thing?
Oh, gee, I don't know.
I know this might put us over the edge, but Audubon has a really important tool, and that's called the important bird areas. And they've kind of gotten shoved under the rug, and we don't have that tool like we used to. So I'd like to add a big concern is that we bring back the important bird areas in Pennsylvania as a critical tool to use to tackle some of these issues.
Laura, would you put that in the chat? You can just put that in the chat to everyone.
Yes, and then one other thing too, some of you mentioned the environmental education concern with the standards. The comment period is open now, and it ends on July 4th. So if anybody wants to make a difference, I'll put my email in, and I can send you, just forward you an email on how to make your comment to the state.
Terrific.
Yep. Phil, can I make 2 comments?
Yes.
Maybe?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. 2 things. I did talk to Ted. It sounds like the ATV trails issue is urgent. So I was going to circle back to Ted and to, they also suggested we get to Sean at Tyadotten. So we will try to see if we can, and also Gary, if I can circle back to the 3 of you, at least via email later tonight or early tomorrow, if we can draft an action alert. We'll get an action alert out. Marsha Pearson, who is in my box in the upper left, is our media person for the Audubon Council. And we will be able to get an alert out. And I'm now thinking too, if the comment period for the environmental education standards are now, I don't know if there's a couple of you that would help to draft. Brian, I don't know if that's one that you are very involved with, in terms of the EE standards. I know you're a teacher.
Yeah.
I don't know to what extent you've been involved with the standards, but I was thinking of getting a couple of you to just help with some, here's what needs to be conveyed, and let people, we can do an alert and ask people to get a hold in terms of the comment period to put their own comments together, maybe on chapter letterhead.
Yeah, I can help with that because I have an excellent email on exactly how to do that.
That'd be great. And I'm just looking to Brian. I'm not trying to throw the weight to him because I know, but your school year's like over, isn't it, Brian?
It's never over, right? I mean, you just keep going.
Brian or Heidi, do you, either of you have a full list of all of the things you discussed?
I do. I have a list of everything we discussed. Yes.
Yeah,
Can you
mine's
email
posted
that
on
to Lee?
on the chat there. Mine's the very first one.
It's the very first one. If you pull it all the way down, Phil, it's on there.
The very first one.
Yeah, go all the way up to top on the chat.
Yeah.
It's on the chat.
Do you see it, Phil?
I think it
I
might have.
see the big four. Habitat.
No, it's right above that.
I can see it if you put it all the way to the top.
All right, and then Marsha, can you save everything that's in the chat so we have it?
You might have put the chat in your chat room,
Yes, I
in your
can.
breakout room, and not on this chat.
No, it's on there. Well, maybe so. I don't know. But I did write everything down. I took a picture too.
I posted it again at the very bottom. So did it show up this time?
I can see it
Yes.
now.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay, we got it. So if we can save the chat, then we're good.
I saved it, and the way anybody can save it is when you're looking at the chat where it says down on everyone and file, there's 3 little dots over to the right. If you click on it, just save chat or participate with anyone, you can save the chat. I'll save it to your computer.
Yeah, and you have it, Marsha, for all of us, for Phil?
I do, just in case you didn't quite get that.
Good. Phil, do you have any concluding words? Wind on.
My concluding words are thank you very much. Everybody did such a great job, and we're a little quirky with how we went about things, but we got the job done, and I promise we'll get better. Lee, the ball's in your court to really wrap it up.
Right. I really appreciate, again, everybody participating this evening. And I'm really excited about the lists that came forward. This is exactly the kind of thing that, I'm going to say it this way, and I know I'm probably the oldest person in the room here, but when we had the Audubon Council of Pennsylvania, this is something we did. We would brainstorm at council meetings. We would brainstorm, and very importantly, back to individual chapters. A lot of you are chapter presidents. This doesn't just happen with a few of us. We will put this list together. There are a lot of things that are repeated here, so we'll winnow out what's the same. We will want to get this out to every chapter so that you can review it. We'll figure out the time frame for this so that you can add things, that you might find some other things that, again, in the spirit of brainstorming, put together things on the list. We're clearly not going to be able to do all of these things. And again, taking from what we had gone from models from other states, one of the things I had also seen with the Audubon Council of Pennsylvania, the olden days, we would send a survey out to every chapter with the winnowed down list once we get the list together and try to identify what are the priorities we want to work on as a council. We do not have staff. We will certainly reach out to Audubon Mid-Atlantic and list the kind of cooperation we've seen with other councils. New York and Colorado in particular talked about the kind of collaboration they do with their regional office. And I think that's something we want to see achieved. And the other thing is, and this goes back to the olden days, and forgive me for nostalgia, but we have a lot of talent in our chapters, so if I want to know about renewable energy, my first call is going to be to Laura Jackson. If in the days of yore, wetlands was a very high priority issue. Bucks County Audubon and their executive director, Bruce McNaught at the time, was an expert in wetlands. And, so we had talent around the chapter network, and I think there's ways to pull a lot of this together, and we identify what will be our priorities. We also did something else. We identified what issues did we think Audubon needed to lead on? What were the issues we needed to support, kind of a second category? And what were the categories where, we'll support other partners, but it's not something that, in terms of the limited amount of energy and time we have, that we can do, not all of the issues. There'd be some issues on a third list. I'll be calling on people and reaching out, looking for volunteers to help pull that together. I am hoping that by the time we get to a fall council meeting, we can begin to put some, at least have the bare bones of what are the issues we want to prioritize, have that discussion, and then also work after a fall council meeting, again, hopefully in conjunction with Audubon Mid-Atlantic, that we can do things together, and that we start to flesh out our positions, our policies for our chapters to endorse, so that we can work on a number of these things. What are our priorities? What's reasonable for us to be able to do with the limited resources we have? So does that make sense to everybody? Or do you think, I'm just crazy?
Are they mutually exclusive?
No, I could become crazy for a lot of, still crazy after all these years, Good team. Does that make sense, folks? Thumbs up, or if you think this is crazy, I'm glad to see that. I appreciate it. I do, want to make sure the chapters that have not been involved see what we've developed. I know some chapters could not participate tonight and wanted to. And then there's some that are not heavy into issues, and hopefully we can help to get them on board. We can go from there. We will be sending out a drummer as a follow-up with some of the notes, and then something specific with regard to this. I will announce that there is a nominating committee. People like me and Heidi and Jim Bonner and Paul Burrows are your officers right now on kind of an interim basis. But Susan Morosky from, if I pronounce her last name right, from Presque Isle Audubon, and Sean from Tyadotton, and where's my third one? Peter Sanger, I think, is not with us tonight, are forming the nominating committee. They will be accepting nominations for officers, and we will look to have an election in the fall too, so that we can have folks leading the council that are elected by the full body, and not just an interim group of some of us that helped to get this started. So with that, if there's nothing else for the good of the cause, again, I really appreciate you providing us. I'm extraordinarily excited about what was generated, because we have a lot to work with, and it also shows why we need a council. Just how many issues that are out there that are going to require all of our help. Again, I'll follow up with Sean, Gary, and Ted about ATV, and you, Laura. Possibly we'll drag Brian in, but with EE, we'll get an alert out so people can respond in a timely way to these issues with Marsha's help.
Thank you, Lee.
Good?
Thank you, Lee.
Yep. All right. Yeah, Ted, and I'll do an email to you guys, and in the meantime,
Okay.
And to Laura too. And I think we can pull something together and turn it around as quickly as we can.
Thanks very much. Appreciate
All
it.
right.
Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
See
you.
ya.
Bye.
Thank you, Phil.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.